And I think the collective way that we walk along in life is a grief for the loss of the village, the loss of tribe, the loss of community. And we taste it at some moments. We go to a workshop where we feel suddenly united across common understandings, or we go to an initiatory rite, or we go to an event, or we even connect across Zoom, and there's something magical that happens and we feel a little less alone. We feel a little more at home in our humanity. I also think that when you look at the world today, we are seeing rampant destruction. We're seeing a pandemic of fear. We're seeing an epidemic of dis-ease, where we can no longer live with ourselves in our own skin. You know, one of the elements that is becoming so painfully visible today is our profound isolation. And then we're taught culturally, we're taught, I think, to become okay with that, to just, deal with that. And if you can't deal with it, something's wrong with you. You're depressed, you're needy, you're codependent, right? I'll never forget when a friend confided in me. He said, "Oh, I'm so sad. I'm just so absolutely depressed as I consider the fact that I'm a needy person who just unfortunately is too clingy." And I said, "What in the world do you mean?" He said, "Well, I just got back from summer camp with my kids, and I was boating every day with them, and we were hanging around the campfire and the other dads and all this. It was so wonderful, and I'm just so sad now that it's over, and I wish I wasn't so needy." And I laughed and I said, "Man, I think you're just grieving the loss of village." And I think the collective way that we walk along in life is a grief for the loss of the village, the loss of tribe, the loss of community. And we taste it at some moments. We go to a workshop where we feel suddenly united across common understandings, or we go to an initiatory rite, or we go to an event, or we even connect across Zoom, and there's something magical that happens and we feel a little less alone. We feel a little more at home in our humanity, which is always a shared experience. And then it disappears, it evaporates, and we go back to normal. We go back to our jobs, we go back to our lives, we go back to paying bills that we probably didn't make or didn't plan on making, paying for educations that we're unsure if we needed in the first place, that don't get us ahead, spouses that we don't really experience a deep communion with. It becomes very, very exhausting very, very quickly. And I think that's the time we live in. I think people are collectively having that question mark bubble over their head where they're saying, is this it? Is this it?
Oh, man. I mean, you're totally speaking my language. And I agree with you that's my assessment of society too, is that most of us are unconsciously grieving the loss of village and community, so much so that it lives and it exists in our DNA. It rumbles in our bloodstream and asks us for more of that. But then the brain pollutes it or clogs it or matches it with a story of what we've either been led to believe or have decided to believe to survive in modern civilization. So I agree with you, man. That's what I witness. And I do think that maybe we're just reaching a tipping point where unless we recreate that, we're not going to want to be around anymore. I mean, the very fact that we have suicide as such a large representation of how people exit life in our society, right? I mean, I think that alone is a reflection that, hey, something's not working here. We've got people who are choosing to exit life rather than be in it. Does that change when people feel connection? Does that change when we have a sense of village and support and a space where people's physical, mental, and emotional health can be cared for, and that not just that they're expected to suck it up and figure it out for themselves? I mean, It's sad, man. It feels like a devastating thing to talk about, that we're reflecting that we're in this space. And the only solace I find in it is that, well, my heart is still beating and I can still be a part of the solution, even if I don't know exactly what it is right now.
Yeah. That despair, that sense of hopelessness that can come so easily when we don't know how to progress, when we don't know how to proceed. And what do? We kind of just go back. Like we go back to the way things were. I think you talked about checking out of life. This is what's so interesting. I mean, I would metaphorize it by saying, one of the biggest and most central questions to my work is not is there life after death, but is there life before death? Right. And I think that's the question so many of us are asking. You probably received that from so many men yourself. Is there life before death? Can I make choices that affect the world, my world, first of all, other people's lives? I think that's probably the biggest thing that people kind of come to me to ask about, which is, can I confidently make decisions that impact my world? We're talking about power here. We're talking about power. Power is really the ability to impact one's world. Of course, I think we conflagrate force and power all the time. The truth is, there's a distinction. Force is the taking away of power, so to speak. But I want power, and I want you to have power. I want everybody to have power. I want people to have the power to impact their worlds, to shift things, to make decisions. And unfortunately, today, I think we live in such a scripted time where we have become, and both in the sense of being programmed, but also then we've steadily made choices to allow ourselves to be disempowered. Yeah. And so I think the despair that follows that, I love what you said, if I can just focus on making a few things, making a few choices, and begin to take steps, simple steps, and they're usually so simple, right? Something magical is possible. I've seen it. You've seen it in our own lives. You can begin to write a new story.